First of all, thanks for inviting me and for giving the opportunity to make a bit of publicity of our calls as well. I will start briefly in describing the evaluation process, and or maybe before I should introduce myself, because I'm Danila Conte, I work for B6, and I work for the Research Executive Agency. The Research Executive Agency is in charge of implementing 80% of the work program. So we do organize the call for evaluation, we do grant the project, and we do manage the project. So basically, we are in charge from the publication of the call till the end of the project. And when we manage the project, of course, we give input to the Mothers DG. We call them Mothers DG, so DG Research, DG Connect as main DGs, but also others DG like Justice, Home, it depends on the topic. So we give those output to them in order to include in the work program for the next year. In this case, of course, 2020, next year will be the last one, but we are as well giving input from Horizon Europe at the moment. And I'm a project advisor, so I do implement the call for evaluation and I do manage projects. In the 2019 call, I will be in charge of Migration 3. So of course, you're free to ask me any question about the work program, but I just have to tell you that specifically, I have more knowledge on my topic. So I will start, as I say, briefly describing the evaluation process and then put more attention on how to prepare a proposal. Maybe I will tell you something which could be obvious, but sometimes is not, because we see when we do the evaluation process that sometimes you tend to disregard some obvious things. So this is the agenda, and we'll touch the timeline and evaluation principles, tips and lessons learned from the past, how to inform yourself, so website, but maybe you know more than me with further information from outside. So let's start with the timeline and evaluation principles. This is basically the schedule for the next calls. So as you might know, the call will be opened next week, the 6th of November. The closing date is the 14th of March. And what we do when we prepare an evaluation. As soon as the call is closed, we start the evaluation process. Then after 5 months, which is mid-July 2019 more or less, we inform the applicant about the output of the evaluation. Then we start the gap phase. Gap phase is grant agreement preparation. So the winners, let's say, the top ranked proposal, we start preparing the grant agreement for signature with us. And then at month 8, mid-November 2019, more or less, the grant will be signed and then they can start the implementation. So, it's important to underline that the evaluation process is based on a fair and equal treatment for all proposals. So there are no differences. All the proposals are evaluated if they are eligible, admissible, and if they, of course, can be evaluated. And the evaluation is done only on the criteria announced during the call. This is one point which sometimes the applicants forgot. We do not invent anything more. The criteria are those ones, and we strictly inform the expert to follow the criteria that we include in the call. The process, of course, is confidential, and we ensure as well that there is no conflict of interest. And this I really appreciated the Rocio, and in the last slides she says, if you want to become an evaluator, please upload your CV, because it's from the portal where we find the experts. A part of some website where the researchers are uploading their research, but we do use our database. So it's not something that it's there and it's neglected, but we really go there and found experts there. So please upload your CV if you think you are expert in any of our topics, but even in another topics of H2020. There is no limitation for the CVs. So then those external experts are invited to evaluate the proposal, and each of them is independent. So each of experts does the evaluation based on his own knowledge and is independent from the others. And of course, we brief them. How we brief them? Basically, they are briefed on the call text, on the topic, because as you, of course, you know, there are different topics, so we use different experts based on their knowledge per different topics, and the scope of it, the evaluation criteria, and their mandate. So nothing more, nothing less. This is what the expert needs to see and take into consideration when they evaluate the proposal. As you know, in H2020, now it's already 4 years, so you know better than me, the proposals that are selected have to be the best because there is no negotiation approach, so we cannot change anything basically when we sign the grant agreement. And we ask and we stress the expert on the fact that the proposal needs to be evaluated only on what is written in the proposal, and they do not have to start to investigate in other different sources. So the proposal is what you upload in the system. Of course, they have a charge of workload because we cannot give them 1,000 proposals in very short time, so each expert evaluates between 5 and 8, depends on their availability, because most of them, well, we say all of them are very high level experts, so might be very busy, so we tend to give 6 on average. And each proposal is evaluated by 3 experts independently. So before the call deadline, what we do? As I say, we identify the expert. This is how looks the database. I don't know if you can see it. We check their availability, the conflict of interest. If they have a conflict of interest, they are out of our list without any further discussion, let's say. And then we prepare the pool of experts. The pool of experts, of course, is based on their topic. So per topic, we prepare a pool of experts for a specific topic. As Rocio said before as well, 50% of the experts are new every year. So we are really looking for new experts. And it's not so easy in some areas because it's the proposal are very high as quality. So we really need the top experts to evaluate them. And sometimes it's a very tough exercise for us. Then, after the call deadline, and after checking which proposal will be admissible and eligible, we allocate the expert to the proposal, 3 experts, that I said before, per proposal, and then they will do their individual assessment, and as soon as the individual reports are submitted and closed, we launch the consensus phase. What does it mean? This, that each expert does his own evaluation. They don't know about the others. They don't know who is evaluating the other proposal because they do it in remote. They do it in a portal. They submit the proposal, and as soon as they submit the proposal, we open the consensus phase, so we open the discussion between the 3 of them, but only after, when everybody submitted the individual, so they cannot be somehow biased with another evaluation. And during this phase, of course, they agreed on a consolidated assessment, because at the end, there will be only 1 report per proposal. Then, as soon as the remote phase is closed, the consensus phase is closed, which means that the 3 experts discuss between them, and they start to see the proposal from different point of view. They arrive to an agreement. We close the process, and we invite some of them to Brussels to do an additional check. And so we convene a panel. We invite them in Brussels. And the procedure is closed at this moment, but they discuss if there are some disagreement, because could happen, the 3 experts cannot arrive to a consensus, or they check if the procedure, the proposal were consistent, the evaluation. And we wanted to, we do it in Brussels, so center with a panel, because we want to endorse the final evaluation. And then, of course, what they do, they endorse the final ranking list. So basically the top proposals in the per topic. As I said, we evaluate based on very straightforward criteria. We call it award criteria: excellence, impact, quality, and efficiency of implementation. But I will come back a bit more in details when I give you some tips and lessons learned on these three criteria. Which is basically now that I start with this, before you start writing the proposal, tips and lesson learned. Okay, start early. Start now. I would say for 2019, you should have started already. Just to be, because a very good proposal needs time to be prepared. This is very important. And the applicants, this is one of the points that they forget. They think maybe that they can do it. Of course, if you come from a research area where you have been a researcher for a couple of years, of course, you can start a bit later. But if you want to aggregate a consortium, it's a tough job. So you should put time and effort, even in administrative things, to know who is the coordinator, who is the beneficiary, how many persons per month. It's not so obvious. And this can have an impact, of course. Then learn the language, because I know that sometimes we have a different language, and we try every work program and every to start to be closer more to the research public. But of course, for example, proposal is your application, but some people, they get confused with our languages. The consortium, it's a team of organization that submit the proposal. And defining a coordinator could be a very obvious tips, but it's not so easy sometimes. Some people, they choose a coordinator just, I don't know, based on some, not really on management skills of the coordinator, for example, or other administrative or operational capacity they can have. So this is really important to choose the right coordinator. Then, of course, get to know the societal challenge 6 background. So, okay, you should read the topic, but you should read as well the budget, because sometimes you think you can fit per budget in one topic, but at the end you cannot. So your research will completely, the resources that you will put for some workload are not feasible. This is another thing that you sometimes tend to forget. So read the work program, but also the annexes, because sometimes in the annexes there are some tips to how allocate resources. So you should read through the lines, basically. Then, okay, of course, you know that to be eligible, you have to have three you should check the eligibility condition, the admissibility condition, the selection criteria, the evaluation criteria, but eligibility criteria, of course, you need 3 beneficiaries from member states or associated countries, and they have to be independent. This is sometimes some consortium forgot this point. Then check the forms, check the templates, because in the templates sometimes we give some tips on how to proceed with the proposal. And I'm underlining this point, and it might be very obvious, but if we go to the next slides, you will see that I'm suggesting reading in deep the core topics in the proposal and all the documents, because you should answer to specific challenges. Sometimes you do not focus to the specific challenge, but you start to add in things and maybe you do not focus on what we want. So what you should do, you should target the scope, the specific challenge, and the expected impact of it. And I will open everything. So you should identify the problem, the challenge that needs to be tackled. In principle, if you already have 1 or 2 problems, it's already enough to write a proposal in detail. And you will see that in the work program, there is not a solution or the expected solution to the problem, because we want you to propose something new. So basically, you should not be narrative, but you can be narrative, but you need to propose something new. If you just rewrite the work program, this, of course, will not go beyond the state of the art. And this is something which some applicants, they forgot, because they are focusing on the objective, but they neglect how to achieve the objective. So the methodology, for example. Of course, the methodology, you can have a brilliant idea, but the methodology has to be feasible. And the methodology to be feasible, he needs to have the efforts per month. And it needs to be in the budget. So if you put together a proposal step by step, you see that some obvious things are not so obvious anymore, because you see maybe the idea, but you're not going deep in the different steps. For example, regarding the scope, it is important to describe in details the idea, because this is another point where sometimes you do not put attention because you think that some things are obvious for the researchers. But as the expert needs to evaluate based only on your proposal, for them it cannot be obvious because they cannot go and investigate in another source. Everything has to be in your proposal. And it's very tough, I understand, because you have only 70 pages or 50 pages, which some applicants forgot sometimes. So then, specify the change that you want to achieve, describing the impact to be achieved. So a part of the methodology, of course, you have to have an impact, because if you have a brilliant idea, you have a brilliant methodology, but it's not feasible, it's a bit strange. And another part which is very important and sometimes is neglected is the dissemination and exploitation. It's vital for the project, but it's vital for what the research and in the frame of the H2020 we want to achieve. We want to disseminate. We want open access. We want everybody to be able to participate in your output. Your output must be available for everybody. This is very important because we want your research to go ahead even after the project is finished. So, as I say, we have 3 criteria: excellence, impact, and implementation. And if you see, the 3 criteria corresponds to the 2 parts of the proposal. This is how a proposal should look. So you have a part A and a part B. So in part A, you have all the general information, so the abstract, the participant, the contracts, the budget, the ethics, if any, open research data pilot, and cause-specific question. And then you have the part B. Part B needs to reflect the 3 criteria, nothing more, nothing less. So you have section 1 on excellence, section 2 on impact, section 3 on implementation. Then you have, of course, the members of the consortium and ethics and security, if any. So it's important when writing the proposal that you take the template, part A and part B, and you reflect the criteria while writing. Very briefly on the type of action, I've seen from the previous presentation that you know already there is difference between what we want in the research innovation action, in an innovation action, or in a coordination support action. Pay attention because research innovation action and innovation action in the portal, you can upload 70 pages. Coordination support action is only 50. And this sometimes it's somehow causing a problem. So what we suggest? We suggest to reading the specific topic, address and define in details your specific objective, what you want to achieve, whom you would like to address, and make sure about the current state of the art and go behind it. Do not imagine that maybe we are not so aware of the state of the art, because most of the time we are aware of the state of the art, and we really want new ideas, especially in this type of calls like SSH6, because unfortunately we have a lot of participation from the research community, but we do not have enough money. So I don't know if you went to the participant portal, you've noticed, I don't know, maybe some of you already participated in other calls, but the competition is very high. And sometimes it's even frustrating for us because we don't have the money to fund all the proposals that we wish to do it. So going beyond the state of the art is should be your starting point, let's say. Then what you can do. This, of course, it's some tips that we are giving, but you are free to proceed in another way, of course. You can produce a draft of 2 or 3 pages and link with the objective, the target group, the work packages, the consortium. So you have a list of countries, you have type of beneficiaries. And then you start detailing the proposed draft by deepening the work plan that you have done in the first 2 or 3 slides. So you will detail the objective and the target. And then at this stage, you can include the methodology to be used and see if this methodology can give an output. And then thinking on the impact on this methodology with your output. And then you can define the work steps, and do not forget the number of pages. I'm keep repeating, don't forget the number of pages, because if you go behind 70 pages, the other pages are completely deleted by the system. We do not read them. And then after this work on the content, let's say, you can start creating the budget. What we advise is to have a bottom-up approach, because of course, until you have all the tasks officially specified and agreed, you cannot know very well in details the person per month. So if you define the tasks, then you can estimate the efforts, so the person man months of work, and then translate in euro. And this, I understand, it's a very difficult exercise because you can end up with more of what we think it's a proposal budget. But as Rocio say, now you can a bit have a margin of flexibility. Yes, and then just a quick tips on the third parties. I think sometimes probably there is a misunderstanding about subcontracting third parties and cascade. Cascade is something very different, and it's part K of the annexes. This is generally not allowed, so we do not grant project or grant other project. A part is very specified in the call in the topics. In the 2019, for example, governance 19, it's one topic when we want cascade funding. So cascade funding, it's when we want them, it's very clear. Then if you have your proposal, you have your budget, you should have a final publishing. And I'm saying that because sometimes it's underestimated because you are hurrying up and you see that the call deadline is tomorrow. Why this should be very important, because I think it's revise the proposal is something something important to see if, for example, the work package are in line with the work plan, the effort, the resources, the responsibilities. Because sometimes you hurry up and you don't see that the responsibility are somehow unbalanced. And sometimes it's just because you don't have time and you not really focus on the responsibilities per beneficiary. The same for the management structure. It's very important to manage in a very high-level way a project of this type. It's not an easy task. Then, of course, the milestones, the deliverables. Sometimes some deliverables do not correspond to the proper milestones. This looks like a proposal which was written a bit in a hurry. And then the communication exploitation plans, again, sometimes is somehow considered as neglectable. Of course, if you have the chance to have a native speaker who can check the English, but this is not mandatory. Then, yes, the core deadline is unchangeable. So sometimes we have a lot of questions like, but the system is not working 1 second before the core deadline, or 1 second after. This is 1 second before, it should work. But 1 second after the deadline, of course, is not working because the deadline are fixed. Completeness of the proposal. If one section is missing, the proposal is not admissible. So if you don't have a communication dissemination plan, the proposal is not admissible because we want the communication dissemination plan. Partnership, okay, as I said, the participant from member state or associated country. For exceptions, check the work program. There are exceptions, but they are clearly indicated in the work program. Page limits. Sorry if I'm pedantic, but this is really an issue sometimes. I don't know why. Consider that the first page of your proposal is page number 1. This sometimes is neglected as well. So some applicants think they will start from 0, or I don't know, but first page is page 1. And you have 70 pages, not 71. Those are some misshapes that we have put together from lesson learned, let's say. So sometimes the template is not taken into consideration. You not follow the structure. You not address each sub-criteria because the 3 criteria, they have sub-criteria. Some proposals do not describe sufficiently the methodology. And this maybe not because you don't have a methodology, but you think that it's taken for granted. That if they are 3 experts, they should know how I want to do it. Well, no, really. It depends. There are different types of way. Or it's not credible. This, okay, I will do a silly examples, but you want to do you have a brilliant idea, you want to go to the moon, you want to go to Mars, okay, but how? Sometimes the how, it's a bit underestimate. Which links to my next comment. You need to be innovative, but feasible. Going beyond the state of the art, but should be feasible. Sometimes the work plan is not justified in details, or the efforts, as I said before, are not realistic. So we see a huge amount of work unbalanced. The budget is not justified, the management is not detailed. Some applicants think that some info are evident, but it's not. And this is actually probably the more challenging things, to give all those information in a very limited page of numbers. Very limited, it depends. I think 70, it might be feasible. And then, last but not least, and really last but not least, check the cross-cutting issues. So if your topic is flagged for cross-cutting issues, it's not just for fun, but we want them to be addressed. So you need to write the proposal. Bear in mind that this cross-cutting issue should be addressed. In some cases, very evident. For some consortium, is very evident. For others, maybe a bit less. But this is a key part of the proposal if you have your topic flagged as cross-cutting issue. And then, yes, this maybe it's stupid in shape, but you win by explaining. Okay, this is completely unreadable, but you will see that there are very detailed information on frequent misshapes. I will send around the presentation, and please have a look on each of them. It could be interesting. Yeah, briefly, those are the award criteria. You know that we have different award criteria, well, not so different award criteria, between research innovation action, and coordination support action. When writing the proposal, part A, part B, you remember the part B needs to answer to each of these criteria and needs to answer to each of these sub-criteria. So I might have been a bit pedantic when I was keep saying, put an objective, point 1, use your methodology, point 2, go beyond the state of the art, point 3. So what I basically keep doing, I'm repeating you the sub-criteria, nothing more, nothing less. And of course, it depends on from which action you are applying. You should follow the different sub-criteria. And then, yes, how to inform yourself. But I think that really this slides is useless probably if I compare with Rocio information or her slides or when you find information. But there are still there some links, useful links that you can click. And last but not least, because I'm sure some of you will ask me about UK. UK is still a member state. They are still participating in 2019 call. We run with them business as usual. They can be beneficiary, yes. They can be coordinator, yes. They are entitled 100% like everybody.